Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today I'm going to talk about doing Dragon's B10 without Verd. So I've been recently trying to test out teams without Verd, just so that I have some ideas on what to suggest to people who don't have it, because I know a lot of people don't have Verd, and they're under the impression that Verd is the main way for you to do Dragon's B10, at least for a face team, right? And by face team I mean straight at the boss. You ignore both towers, because that saves you time from killing the two towers, or even one tower. Verd certainly makes it a lot easier, but you don't have to use Verd. And I'm going to try to use some units that are that are readily obtainable. I know Phil Mars needs a little bit of luck to get, but you can replace him with another water nuker depending on what you have. So I'm going to go through the stats and just show the runes really quickly. Right, so this is the stats on my Sigmaris. Obviously you don't have to copy this, you don't have to use these exact stats. You can probably use lower quality runes and still get by. I mean, I can't really test out what the absolute minimum requirement is to do the face team using this comp, right? Because I don't really keep the low quality runes anymore. But I mean, Sigmaris' runes are mostly spare runes for me, so as long as you can get some decent runes, you should be able to do it. Okay. The most important thing is try to make him a little bit tanky, on the tankier side, so that way it's not too likely that he'll die, especially to the crystals if they defense break him. This is another thing to point out. My one does have skill ups, the most important one being the Ice Volcano, in my opinion, because this is the one that deals the most damage. It scales up enemy max HP, and I think it's if you're especially if you're a free-to-play player, and you don't have a lot of Sapphires to Devilmon up, I think it's worth Devilmoning Sigmaris for Dragon's B10. Even to this day, I'm using Sigmaris as my main damage dealer in Dragon's B10 because I'm not using a speed run. I'm using a very safe team. It's about 2-minute average team, and he's pretty good in that team. He never dies, and I quite like him. Also, you don't have to make him on Violent. You can use him on something like Rage or Fatal. That still works. But Violent is the preferred set in my opinion. Right? I feel it makes it a lot easier or a lot safer when he's on Violent. The second skill also does pretty good damage, so getting skill ups in this is not bad. But if you max the Ice Volcano before the other two, you don't have to keep investing Devilmon unless you have excess Devilmon and you just feel like bumping him up to his maximum potential. That's up to you. But the main reason I really like Sigmaris in Dragon's B10 for non-Verd teams is because of his leader skill, 44% HP. This makes it much easier to tank through the dragons when you don't have like Verd boosting your team's speed up so much, right? Because with Verd in the team, you have the speed lead and also getting all the attack bar boosts, so it makes it so that your Bella and Veromos, it makes it easier for them to keep up with the healing and cleansing. But the extra HP from Sigmaris makes it easier to tank through it. This is my Bella stats. Oh, 1 second. There we go. Right, so definitely you want him to be on Violet. It probably doesn't need to be quite this fast, but the faster the better. So you want to aim to make him as fast as possible. Decent amount of accuracy is recommended, but I wouldn't focus too heavily on it. The most important thing is to make him fast and decently tanky. Okay. Now, you don't have to have like super high quality runes either. It's just that this is the runes I have. Okay. And of course you want him to be max skilled. Veromos, same idea. You want him to be as fast as possible on Violent if possible as well. But if you can't do Violent, then you can do Swift on both Bella and Veramos. But you probably just need them to be a lot faster than what you would have on Violent. So maybe equal sort of like quality runes, but with the additional Swift bonus of the 25 speed. So we'll bump them up to around 230 speed. It's not easy to obtain as well, but I mean, if you've been farming giants for a lot longer, you probably be more likely to have better Swift runes. Right, so he just wants tankiness and speed, right? And of course, max skill helps a lot. You want to max skill him anyway for PvP and PvE purposes. Alright, this is my Fuel Mars. I've shown it many times before in rune videos, but I have the stats here for you. This is built purely for PvP, but it works fine in Dragons for me. I think the best way to build him for Dragons though is to make him 85% crit rate. That way he will always crit. Whereas my one, this is built in PvP, he's awesome. I built him around having his own leader skill, right? That's what I should say. So he doesn't always crit in Dragons, but it's best if you can make it 85 crit. You don't need to make it this fast, but give him a decent amount of HP, similar to Sigmaris. You want to get them both to around maybe 16k plus. The more the better. And just another thing to note, I do have maximum towers, right? Glory point buildings. So if you don't have, if your towers aren't as advanced as I am, just keep in mind that you might need some better stat requirements than what I have, right? You just have to make up for it with runes. Or at least get it to what the quality that I have. It should be fine with lower buildings, okay? Now this is Konamiya. Now Konamiya's slot, this is the last slot in my team, right? This is the flexible slot. So if you need a really safe team, right? The other guys are dying a lot, your Bella can't solo heal and your Veramos can't solo cleanse, then this slot you fill it in with an additional support. Alright, so Konamiya is an option if you need extra cleansing, right, to remove the dots. He also heals as well. Other options are Armin for more healing. He's got pretty good heals, right, and he's easy to obtain. Lisa is also an option because she cleanses and she also helps remove the boss's immunity. I think you can also use Megan. Megan has the defense buff, although it's only for 2 turns though, which is a bit of a downside. But she's more, she does help speed up the run a little bit because she removes the buff, the immunity buff, and she also gives you attack buff, so your team does more damage, right? So what I will recommend is start out with a healer or a cleanser. That way, it's a lot safer, and then once your team gets better runes, you can swap it out for another damage dealer if you can survive, without the extra support. Right, so I'll show you a few runs with different units, and you can see how it performs. For my team, it's about a 2-minute to 2.5-minute run with this sort of team setup. And I think that's pretty good already for a face team. If you want a speed team, I mean, this is not the guide for you really. But if you like safe runs like I do, then this is good for you. But now with lesser quality runes, you might be looking at a slower run. Obviously, since I got some probably more better runes than the average player would have on these sort of this sort of team, because I generally would only use these sort of monsters in Dragons, apart from Fuel Mars, right? So I don't give them the best runes, especially Sigmaris, right? If I give Sigmaris better runes, it'll probably be a lot faster. But I don't have the super high quality runes for that. But so with lesser quality runes, you might be looking at a 2.5 to 3-minute run, but that's still fine. Especially if you're doing like your first face team, right? And you get your first phase team to around 3 minutes. That's pretty good, right? Then you sort of aim to try to drop it down to around 2 minutes. And I guess it really depends how often you play. If you're farming out throughout the day, alright, and you have the crystals to burn, and then you want your team to be as fast as possible. Right, so that's with Konomiya. Now I'll show another run. This is with Megan. Alright, so with Megan, these are her stats. She's also built for PvP, but it's fine for this. You would ideally probably put her on Swift. She doesn't need to be on Will. Will is more for a PvP set. So if you're just building her for dragons, you can give her something like Energy, Focus, or like Endure, any offset, doesn't matter. Just look for decent stats. So you just want decent accuracy, decent HP, and decent speed. And as I said before, the reason why she's nice for the team is she boosts the attack bar, which is like a decent sort of replacement for the Verd. Even though she's not giving you as much attack bar as Verd does, it's still something. And she's giving you defense buff to help protect your team, especially through the trash waves. And she's giving you attack power buff, and therefore you can do a lot more bursts, especially with Sigmarus, right? And the other most important thing is it gives you a second buff remover, and that's really important for the boss because I find Bella solo buff removal, it's very unreliable, right? Even with max accuracy, he fails very often, right? So having two buff removers, helps ensure that you can keep the immunity buff off him as much as possible, and therefore you can keep defense break up on him. And it also means Sigmarus can put the attack power debuff from his third skill, and in case as long as the boss hits you before the immunity comes back up and cleanses him, that's reducing the damage you're taking too. Alright, and having the defense break on him more often will speed up the run too. Now, when you don't need Megan in your team anymore, and like the other 4 units can potentially just solo the boss, right? When you're at that point, you can add a 5th monster that just does damage, right? Actually, I'll show the damage a bit later. I'll just show you one other alternative for people who don't have Verd, and that alternative is Bernard, which is the more common sort of replacement for Verd, because he increases attack bar and speed at the same time. So he's giving you a lot more attack gauge. It's probably not quite as much as what Verd will give you, but it's still quite a lot. But to make him survive in Dragons, especially when you don't have very strong runes or glory point buildings, you probably need to make him something like speed, HP, HP. Okay, I'll show you the runes on mine. Mine's not built like that way, but he survives okay. So you can get a lot more HP than I do, right? Because I only have 1 HP rune on my Bernard, but this is a standard way to build Bernard, is make him as fast as possible and then give him some tanky stats, right? You can also do a YOLO build, but YOLO builds are more for PvP, right? You can do accuracy on slot 6 if you want, but if you're using him for dragons and starting out with lesser quality runes, I would probably recommend to give him at least either defense, at the minimum, or give him HP, which is probably the more optimal, safer choice. It's because the crystals will defense break your Bernard, right? And if they defense break your Bernard and they get another hit after that, he's probably dead. So having 2 HP runes makes it a bit safer than having a defense rune. For areas where you don't have defense break to worry about, defense is better than HP. But when there's defense break to worry about, HP is generally a bit better, right? Obviously every bit of defense helps, but HP is better in that instance. And obviously for ignore defense, then HP is far superior. Alright, that's like a PvP thing. But in PvE, like if you can cleanse enough that you don't have to worry about defense break, then go for defense as a rune, because that can make use of those good defense runes that have high speed that you might not be able to use on other units. You know, you can make use of those runes on something like a Bernard. Okay, so after this run, I'll show you a couple of runs with different damage dealers. Obviously, the damage dealer it really depends on what we have available. Probably the best farmable one is Spectra, but Spectra is a little bit harder to rune because he's not water, right? The water damage dealers are easier to rune because they take less damage from the boss, and they also have elemental advantage against the boss, right? So you don't have to have max crit rate. You can get away with 85% crit rate. Right. The only thing that they may not crit on is the crystals, but I think it's mainly the boss is really probably the more important part to try to kill quicker, especially with especially with your single target DPS. So for example, my Sigmaris could probably be built with 85% crit rate, and he would still be fine. But because he's got Awakening from crit rate, his Awakening bonus is crit rate, I said may as well just give him 100%. Because it's a lot easier to rune him. That's another advantage of having Sigmaris. He's a lot easier to rune because he starts off with 30% crit rate. So having just a blade set just makes it a lot easier to run to get him to high crit rate. Alright, so this is with Spectra. So as I said with Spectra, it's probably easier to rune him. It's probably easier to rune a different water monster, but if you don't have any good water damage dealers, you can use Spectra. He's farmable, he's an SD, and that's a secret dungeon, right? So you know, you can always farm him. And the good thing about Spectra is he scales up enemy max HP. So the best way to build him is to try to get him to max crit rate and as much crit damage as possible. You don't even need any attack on him. You just need him to be fast, good crit damage, enough HP to survive, and some decent accuracy is nice too. Alright? So having accuracy is nice because it helps speed debuff the right tower, which is the most important one. If you put the speed debuff on the right tower, it takes a lot longer for it to actually put the immunity on the boss, and therefore you have the defense break on the boss a lot longer, and then your Spectra and your Sigmaris can do a lot more damage with their enemy HP scaling abilities. As you can see, he's taking a lot of damage from these crystals, and it's because, you know, it's a lot harder to make him tanky and deal good damage, right? And also because he's not water. As you can see that there's a speed debuff on the tower, which is nice. I get a lot more time to deal damage to the boss now. If you have Verd, it's even better because you're getting attack bar boost as well. And you see that spectral assault or whatever it's called. It did a huge chunk of the boss's bar, and my Spectra doesn't even have very high crit damage. I actually forgot to show you the stats. I'll show you the stats now. Right. So you can see he doesn't even have that much crit damage, and he took out like maybe almost a quarter of the health bar with just defense break. So if you can build him with max crit rate with better crit damage, like say a crit damage slot 4, then he'll do even more damage. Ideally, it's best to put him on Violent, alright? That way, I mean, he can do more burst damage, right? Because he's getting more turns. And also, it helps him because his AI is not very good. He doesn't use backlash all the time. And you know, it's very good for him to backlash turn 1. So if he doesn't have the cooldown up, you know, when he goes in, If he Violent procs, then there's a chance he can do Backlash, and that will reduce the tower's bar. But if you don't have the Violent runes, you can do Swift like I have. Alright? You don't have to get max accuracy like I said, but having good accuracy is nice. Right? So the offset also doesn't have to be focus. It can be blade if you need the extra crit rate. So you can do something like Swift Blade or Violent Blade, and then hopefully have some good crit rate substats and a bit of speed if possible. And then crit damage slot 4 is ideal. But if you don't have enough crit rate to do that, you can also do crit rate and just get him to a consistent amount of damage dealt. Now to show you as an alternative, you can use water nukers. I only have 2 water nukers that are actually runed up. The easiest one to obtain would be Stella. So here's an example. Other alternatives could be Julie, which is the water P-Ray. I can't really think of too many other ones. I think some people use the water Barbarian King. He's fine as well because he does branding too. And I've heard he's nice for this boss. I think he's got other good elements in his skill kit for dragons too. So that's another one to consider. Especially because Barbarian Kings, unless you have the Dark one, you're probably gonna accumulate a few Barbarian Kings. Alright, and I feel probably the water one you might want to build, at least for dragons. But he's probably only useful for dragons, so keep that in mind. Obviously, if you have a Nat 5 or one of the Nat 5 damage dealers like Tor or Chow, they're both really good. You can put them in Stellar slot as well. And worst case scenario, if you are one of those unlucky people that summon a second Sigmarus, you can put another Sigmarus in. Sure, why not? But I wouldn't recommend fusing a second one. That's a lot of work for something you probably wouldn't use super long term, right? Eventually, you probably get something better that you can put in instead. Although by the time you probably have a Verd, so you put Verd in, and then put Sig in the 5th slot instead. Okay, I'll just show one more run with Tor, just because he's the only other water damage dealer that I have built. Actually, he's probably the only other damage dealer that's suitable for this run that I actually own at the moment, that then ruined up. This is a kind of a lot of people will keep this, but that won't be useful for me at the moment. Alright, so we'll try Tor. Tor should be the fastest one. Actually, I did see Escher. You can use Escher as well, because he does the speed buff, which is nice, and heals, like extra healing. That's assuming you have an Escher. And he also helps remove the immunity as well. And if defense break happens to be on the boss, he does a lot of burst damage with his Massacre as well. Actually, another one you could use is Vigor, which is the water werewolf, basically poor man's Escher. He still does good damage with his Shred, right? That's his version of Massacre, and he does defense break, which is nice. And he's got the same skill too, so that's additional healing and speed buff. So if that's another way to make it sort of semi-safe while adding a bit of extra damage compared to, say, running a Konomiya. And if you need to be ultra safe, you could probably run something like Colleen, which is another way to add heals to your team, but she also gives you attack buff. That could work too. I actually used to use Colleen long time ago. And you probably have Colleen anyway for raids and Necro B10, so you can definitely put it in there. Attack buff, as I said before, helps a lot with increasing damage. So that's another unit you can consider if you need a safer run. Okay? So I think that about covers it for non-Verd Dragon B10 face teams. You can see there with Tor, it's a 1 minute 30 run. I may even use this more, like just instead of my Verd team. It might even be better. So I'm going to leave it here. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in comments. And good luck with your Dragons B10 farming. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Have a good one.